What is going on, college basketball fans? Today we're starting our conference tournament predictions. We're going to be doing the Power 6 conferences and also the Mountain West, all as their own separate videos, so expect these coming out over the next couple of days before the tournaments begin. Make sure you guys subscribe for more college basketball content. We are in March Madness. We made it. We're less than a week away from Selection Sunday. This is the best time to subscribe to this channel, and we're super close to 5,000 subs, so let's get there. Without further ado, let's get into our Big 12 tournament predictions. So here we do have the bracket, and it's really interesting the way this is shaped up. I think preseason, if you were to say that Kansas was going to get the 6th seed in the Big 12, I mean, when is the last time that they did not have a double bye in the Big 12 tournament? I mean, wow, they are not a top 4 seed in this league. I mean, usually they are 1. If they're not 1, they're 2, maybe 3. To see them as a 6th seed is crazy. But here we do have the tournament starting here in the first round on Tuesday. We're going to have our first 2 games, Oklahoma State versus Central Florida, and also West Virginia versus Cincinnati. So those will be some fun games. Do I see any of these 4 teams going very far? Not really. I don't see any of them being able to make it past the quarters. It would be a surprise if any of them even got to the quarters, but anything can happen. It's March Madness, and yeah, guys, I'm ready to get into these predictions. So let's start with those first round matchups. We do have Oklahoma State. We do have UCF. And this one, honestly, is a coin flip matchup for me. I could see either of these 2 teams winning. I do, however, believe that I am going to go with the slight upset, 13-12 here, and pick Oklahoma State here to win this game. I just feel like I trust them a little bit more in this matchup. Like I said, it could go either way. I would be surprised if either of these teams were able to beat BYU, to be honest, especially if BYU gets hot. They're going to be very, very hard to beat. But I'll go with Oklahoma State here in that first matchup. Next up, we do have WVU versus Cincinnati. And as you guys all know, I am a WVU fan. This has been one of the worst years in program history for us, for our college basketball team, and I don't think we're beating Cincinnati. We got swept by Cincy this year, or actually I think we did actually beat them when they came to Morgantown, but I do think that Cincy is going to defeat us here. We just recently played them and got beat decently bad, on their court, and I just feel like they're going to beat us again. Can WVU win this game? Sure, yeah, it could definitely happen. But I just don't see it happening here in this one, so I am going to go with Cincinnati to win that one. So now we are here in the second round, and let's start off back up with Oklahoma State, and they're going to be facing BYU. I like this BYU team a lot. Very good at shooting threes, very good offense, very good ball movement. They share the rock. They don't have like one true star player. They have a couple of players that, they're their best players on the team, but they share the rock, and they play such good team basketball. There are so many players on this team that can shoot the ball. I would be very surprised if they lost here in their first game in the second round, and I am going to take BYU to defeat Oklahoma State here in this one. Next up, we do have TCU versus Oklahoma. Winner gets the number 1 overall seed in Houston in the quarters. Now, TCU versus Oklahoma could go either way. That is why it is the 8-9 matchup. I mean, this one legitimately can go either way. I think that the guard matchups here in this one are interesting. You got Jameer Nelson Jr., you got McCollum on Oklahoma's side. I do like this Oklahoma team a lot, and I really want to go with them in this matchup. I think I'm going to do it. Even though I think Emmanuel Miller could cause some problems for Oklahoma, I think that they're going to play pretty good defense in this matchup. I think that they did split in the regular season, TCU and Oklahoma, but I am going to go with Oklahoma here to get this win and move on to face Houston in the quarters. And this is a huge matchup for many reasons, not only to advance in the Big 12 tournament, but also both those teams are kind of like scraping by on the bubble, around that 10-9 seed range. And they both could use a win. They both could use a win here in the second round to really lock in their spot in the NCAA tournament. I think that they'll both get in no matter what, but there's always a chance. There's always a chance. You get some bid steals, somebody gets knocked out. The winner is definitely more likely to get in than the loser of this game. So give me Oklahoma. Next up, we do have Texas versus Kansas State. Very interesting game here because I could see Kansas State, if any double-digit seed in this Big 12 tournament is going to make a run, I think it would be Kansas State. I mean, they got Tyler Perry, Arthur Kaluma, Cam Carter. They got some studs on this team, but Texas has been hot as of late, and I think I am going to go with Texas to get the win here in this one. I just think Max Asmus, Tyrese Hunter, they're going to do enough. And Dylan DeSue especially has been playing very, very good this year ever since he got back off that early season injury. He's been playing really good, and also Max Asmus has been playing really, really good as of late, and we know what he can do in March Madness. We'll see if he can get turned up here. I'm going to go with the Longhorns here to make it to the quarters. Next up, we do have Cincinnati versus Kansas. I am going to take Kansas here in this one. I just think too much experience, especially DeJuan Harris, Kevin McCullar, so much experience. I mean, Hunter Dickinson has experience, not necessarily in the Big 12, but he does have that experience, and I think that is going to pay dividends here in this one, and I'm going to take Kansas to move on as our 6th seed. So no real upsets to the quarterfinals. We did have a 9/8, but that's it. I don't like to get too chalky, but this is really how I feel it's going to turn out. I could see Kansas State maybe pulling off that 10/7. I don't see Cincinnati beating Kansas, and I don't see Oklahoma State beating BYU, though. So I feel pretty good about these quarters. You could pick TCU over Oklahoma. That's very 50-50 for me. Kansas State has a shot at Texas, but I think Texas, they're playing good ball right now, so I'm going to take them. Next up, we got BYU versus Texas Tech, our 5 versus 4 seed. This is going to be a very, very fun matchup, and it could go either way. I mean, you got... This is just going to be a fun matchup. You get a 4 versus 5 in the conference tournament. You know it's going to be close. You know these teams have a lot that they're fighting for. And Texas Tech, Joe Toussaint, Pop Isaacs, they're a beast. They're going to be able to keep up with BYU scoring, especially if Texas Tech is playing to the best of their abilities on defense. I'm going to go with Texas Tech in first-year head coach Grant McGasland. I know it's McCasland, but they call him McGasland for a reason. He shows up in March Madness. His team won the NIT last year with North Texas, and I just think that he is a good coach in March Madness. I think he's going to out-coach BYU here in this game. I think that they're going to play amazing defense, slow down that BYU offense. Give me the Red Raiders to move on to the semis. Next up, we do have Texas versus Iowa State. This is going to be a fun matchup. I mean, you got Taman Lipsey, you got Milan, the freshman, down low, who I think is a stud. You got Rob Jones, who I think could play a big, big role for this Iowa State team come March Madness. If he's playing his best ball, Iowa State can be dangerous because I believe he is an X-Factor type player. So that is why I kind of like Iowa State here in this matchup. I could definitely see a 7/2 right here in the Big 12, especially because Texas has been playing pretty good as of late. But Iowa State, too good. I think that they're going to have a lot of fans show up to Kansas City this coming week for the Big 12 tournament. And for that first game, they are going to be electric. They're definitely going to be electric. They're definitely going to make that trip from Ames. Iowa State moves on past Texas. Next up, we do have Kansas versus Baylor. And I just mentioned, it is in Kansas City. You know there's going to be a ton of Kansas fans. It's basically right next door to Lawrence, Kansas. And Kansas has a 6 seed. They got Kevin McCullar back the last few games. He was injured. starting to get him back going. I think that he's going to have a big, big game. And that is the key matchup, right? It's Kevin McCullar. It's versus Jalen Bridges, who has been playing very, very good, the veteran. That is the key matchup. But then you look at kind of the guards. I think that Kansas has more experience with DeJuan Harris than like Jacoby Walters on Baylor. I think Hunter Dickinson causes problems for Baylor. I just don't think that they have the front court to guard him. And I just think Kevin McCullar masterclass in this one. I'm going to take Kansas here to move on to the semifinals as a 6 seed. I actually did forget one of the quarterfinal matchups. I apologize. But we do have Houston versus Oklahoma. Another very fun matchup. We just saw this, a couple of weeks ago, and Oklahoma was almost able to knock off Houston. So this would not be an impossible game for Oklahoma. However, I do feel like Houston is going to remember that game. They're not going to take Oklahoma lightly, especially in their first game of this tournament, because they did get a bye week. Or a bye game. It's not a whole week in between games. But they did get a bye game. So this is going to be their first game of the tournament. I think they're going to remember that game for Oklahoma. They're going to come in with a better game plan. And I think they're going to beat them by a good bit. I think by at least 10 points here in this one. I'm going to take Houston. Just a defensive masterclass. Jamal Shead could drop close to 20 points. Give me Houston here in that one. Now, we do have our semifinal matchups. We do have Texas Tech versus Houston, and then we have Iowa State versus Kansas. I feel pretty confident about these. Now, I feel like I'm going to get at least 2 of these right in the semifinals, but anything can happen. Like, I could see Texas beating Iowa State. I could see BYU beating Texas Tech, for sure. I feel pretty confident about Kansas getting past Baylor. For some reason, even though Baylor is a very solid team, I feel confident in that. And I feel confident in Houston over Oklahoma. I do really like Iowa State, but I feel like Texas is sneaky. But I feel kind of confident about Iowa State here in that quarterfinal matchup. But here we do have our semis. And Texas Tech versus Houston. Another very fun matchup. I think that Houston has been on another level lately. Now, Texas Tech has the squad to be able to compete with them. They could beat Houston 100%. Am I going to pick that, though? No, I am not. I'm going to take Houston. In their first year in the Big 12, not only are they Big 12 regular season champs, but they are going to make it to the Big 12 tournament championship game after knocking off Houston. Jamal Shead has a big game. LJ Cryer has a big game. Roberts has a big game. Juwan Roberts is a fucking beast. But next up, we do have Iowa State versus Kansas. And this is going to be a fun matchup. We've seen it earlier in the year. It was in Hilton Coliseum. Iowa State was able to get that dub. We know Iowa State, they're undefeated at home this year. So it wasn't Houston. Very hard to do. I mean, I know they're amazing atmospheres. They're really good teams. But to just knock off everybody who comes in those doors is very impressive. Still. Iowa State versus Kansas. This is a fun matchup. And I'm not going to lie. I kind of like Iowa State here in this matchup. Once again, they beat Kansas earlier this year. I think they do it again. I think Taman Lipsey plays a good game. I really like Milan, the freshman. I think they both have big games. I think Taman Lipsey as a playmaker mostly has a big game. Hits some big threes down the stretch. Outplays DeJuan Harris. I'm going to take Iowa State here in this one. I just feel like I know they're the top 2 seeds. I don't like to chalk my brackets. But I mean, come on, man. I think that these 2 teams are the 2 best teams in the Big 12. It would not surprise me if Kansas was able to make it to the Big 12 championship game. Not at all, especially with how good of a coach Bill Self is. and they really have a good, talented team. I mean, Johnny Furphy, I didn't mention him earlier. They got some players on that squad. I just don't think they have much depth. I think Iowa State has a lot more depth than them. So I'm going to take the Iowa State. Houston, Iowa State, I feel like they're the two best teams in this league. They're going to be in the Big 12 championship game. So we do have our championship matchup, Houston, Iowa State. Both have really good defense. Both have really good depth. Both teams were undefeated at home this year. They played each other twice already this year, home and away. And like I said, they're both undefeated at home. They both won a game versus each other. And they were both really good games. So I can only imagine that this game is also going to be a super good game. And I just feel like Iowa State is going to have more fans at the Big 12 tournament than Houston is. I think how good this Iowa State team is this year. They're going to make the trip from Ames to Kansas City. There will be Houston fans there too. Don't get me wrong, but I think Iowa State is going to have a slight, maybe even more than slight, advantage when it comes to fans being at the game. I just think that Gilbert, Taman Lipsey have a game. They need to play great defense, slow down Jamal Shead. If they can slow down Jamal Shead, don't let him go crazy like he did in that second matchup where Houston won at home. I think Iowa State can win this game, and I am going to take Iowa State to win the Big 12 championship in the tournament this year as the 2 seed. There we go. We made it big for you guys. The Cyclones come into Kansas City and win the Big 12 championship. Let me know what you guys think about my predictions, man. I feel pretty good about this bracket. I could see multiple teams winning it. Houston definitely could win it, obviously, right? Iowa State can win it. Kansas could sneak up there and win it. Baylor, if they can get past Kansas, I think Baylor could win it. I think Texas, if they get past Iowa State, they have a slight chance of winning it. They won it last year. They have, a couple of players, Dylan DeSue, Tyrese Hunter, that was on that team last year. They don't have a Serge Ibaka Rice like they did last year. Or a, what's his name? Marcus Carr. But they do have Max Asmus now. So I think that Texas team, they're heating up at the right time. Could be a sleeper. Texas Tech, if they can get by BYU and Houston and make the championship game. It would not surprise me if Texas Tech won the Big 12 championship. I think BYU, same thing with them. I think that they have a potential chance to. But I feel pretty good about it being Houston or Iowa State. And I'm going to take the Cyclones to get it. The 2 seed out of the Big 12 raises it up. So that's going to do it for this one. Be on the lookout for more, as more of these conference tournament predictions are going to be dropping here very shortly. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching.